In 1646, eager to invade the Philippines, the Dutch dispatch a fleet of 19 warships, 16 regular galleons and 3 fireships, divided into 3 separate squadrons. However, the Spanish forces, which included many native Kapampangan volunteers, Filipinos from the province of Pampanga, consisted of 2, and later, 3 Manila galleons, and a galley. In a series of 5 naval battles fought in the waters of the Philippines, the Filipino and Spanish forces neutralized the Dutch fleet of 19 warships, inflicting heavy damage upon the Dutch squadrons, forcing the Dutch to abandon their invasion of the Philippines. This is known as the Battles of Naval de Manila. If you are new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe. Hit the subscribe button below, and hit also the notification bell so that you won't miss any of my new videos. Early Spanish-Dutch conflicts in the Philippines. Pursuing their quest for alternative trade routes to Asia, the Dutch reached the Philippines and sought to dominate the commercial sea trade in Southeast Asia. Being at war with Spain, they engaged in privateering activities. They harassed the coasts of Manila Bay and its environs, and made attempts to cut off Spanish trade with East Asia. The first Dutch squadron to reach the Philippines was led by Olivier van Noort. On December 14, 1600, Van Noort's squadron grappled with the Spanish fleet under Antonio de Morga near Fortune Island, where de Morga's flagship, the San Diego, sank. Van Noort managed to return to Holland, thus becoming the first Dutch to circumnavigate the world. Another Dutch fleet of 4 ships under the command of François de Winter tried to attack Manila in 1609, but was repelled by the Spanish Governor-General Juan de Silva, who launched a counterattack and defeated the Dutch at the Battle of Playa, where François Wittert was killed. On October 1616, another Dutch fleet of 10 galleons under the command of Joris van Spielbergen blockaded the entrance of the Manila Bay. A Spanish armada of 7 galleons led by Juan Ronquillo battled against Spielbergen's fleet at the Playa on April 1617, known as the Second Battle of Playa. Spielbergen's flagship, the Sol de Hollanda, Son of Holland, sank, and the Dutch were once again repulsed with heavy damage. In view of their previous failures to disrupt the Spanish Empire's trade in Asia, the Dutch decided to seize the Philippines, feeling certain that they were strong enough to carry out the attacks. From the time they conquered the Spanish settlement in the north of Formosa in 1642, the Dutch became increasingly eager to attack Manila because they knew the city lacked strong defenses and that it was unable to receive enough aid because the Spanish were occupied by the wars in Europe. Full-scale attack in 1646. The Dutch decided to launch a decisive attack in the Philippines. The Dutch dispatched a fleet of 19 warships, 16 regular galleons and 3 fireships, divided into 3 separate squadrons. News of the arrival of the first squadron in Ilocos and Pangasinan region reached Manila on February 1, 1646. The Dutch tried to win over the Ilocanos and Pangasinenses, promising complete independence and abolition of taxes. But when the natives resisted, the Dutch corsairs plundered their homes. The arrival of some companies of Spanish soldiers to those places, however, forced the Dutch to re-embark to their ships. Learning the presence of the enemy, Governor Fajardo called for a council of war. At that time, Manila had no naval strength to repel the enemy, save for the 2 old and nearly rotting Manila Acapulco galleons, the 800-ton Encarnacion and 700-ton Rosario, which arrived at Cavite from Mexico from the previous year. Despite of being greatly outnumbered by the enemy, General Fajardo decided that the 2 galleons should be made ready for battle. The 2 galleons were hastily equipped and manned. Encarnacion as the flagship and Rosario as the admiral ship. Fajardo appointed the General Lorenzo Agal de Orellana as commander-in-chief of the Spanish fleet, and thus making him captain of the flagship Encarnacion, with Sebastian Lopez as admiral, and captain of the Rosario. Battle of March 15, 1646, the first battle. Arriving at the entrance of Mariveles, Botolan province, the Dutch squadron were nowhere to be found, contrary to the earlier reports of the sentinels stationed in Mariveles. The Spanish fleet then proceeded to Bolinao in Lingayen, Pangasinan. There, on March 15 at around 9 a.m., the Spanish fleet discovered one enemy vessel on oars, but it quickly took flight. At about 1 p.m., 4 Dutch ships appeared, together with the smaller oared vessel they had seen earlier. The two fleets came within firing range of each other between 2 and 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The first salvo came from the Dutch flagship but missed its mark. The Encarnacion answered with 2 shots, hitting the Dutch flagship with a 15 kilograms cannonball, tearing open the forward edge of the ship's prow. The Dutch then concentrated firing on the smaller ship Rosario, but it retaliated by firing a simultaneous volley of cannons. On the other hand, the Encarnacion fired freely at any of the 4 enemy vessels, inflicting severe damages and thus forcing the Dutch to disengage in battle. The battles lasted for 5 hours. At around 7 p.m., 4 of the enemy ships retreated in the dark with their lanterns out. The Dutch flagship almost sunk but also escaped under the cover of darkness. The Spanish Filipino fleet looked for the Dutch corsairs up to the northern tip of Luzon, but the Dutch fleet completely disappeared. The Spanish fleet sustained only minor damages. None of the men were killed and only few were wounded. The 2 ships stayed at the port of Bolinao to undergo some repairs. From there, General Orellana, after sending word to Governor Fajardo of their initial victory, received orders from the governor to escort and secure the safety of the merchant galleon from Mexico, the San Luis, which was calculated to reach the Philippines via Embarcadero de San Bernardino on July 21. The merchant galleon, laden with goods from Mexico, could be a principal target of the Dutch corsairs. Naval siege at Ticao Island. In mid-April, the 2nd Dutch squadron had entered the Philippine waters. The Dutch first headed for Jolo, intending to attack the Spanish garrison in that place, but upon seeing that it was already abandoned, as ordered by Governor Fajardo to consolidate the Spanish force against the Dutch fleet then proceeded to another Spanish stronghold in Zamboanga, snatching 2 of the 5 ships that would carry the relief to Ternate and Moluccas. The other 3 managed to escape. The Dutch then attacked the stronghold of Zamboanga, but given its strong resistance, the corsairs landed their troops in Caldera to directly assault the fort, but they were driven back to their ships by Captain Pedro Duran de Monfortel with 30 Spanish and 2 indigenous companies, causing more than 100 casualties on the part of the Dutch. News of the Dutch presence in Zamboanga reached the Spanish fleet, which had already docked at the port of San Jacinto in Ticao Island, a long and narrow strip of land, lying between San Bernardino Strait and Ticao Passage, northeast of Masbate Island, on June 1. The port where the 2 galleons anchored lies open to sea, in the form of a semicircle, and is entered by a passage through which vessels can pass only one after another. The Dutch squadron, still stationed in Zamboanga awaiting the return of the other 3 ships which managed to escape their clutches, proceeded to San Bernardino, prompted by their previous orders from Batavia to seize any vessel coming from Mexico to the Philippines. On June 22, the 7 Dutch warships and 16 launches were sighted by the Sentinel approaching the island of Ticao. The following day, June 23, the Dutch discovered the Encarnacion and Rosario moored at the entrance of San Jacinto port. The Dutch decided to form a naval siege, blockading the entrance of the harbor with their own ships to prevent the 2 galleons from coming out. It was decided after a council of war that the 2 ships should not engage in battle to save their ammunitions until the arrival of the San Luis to protect it at all cost. The standoff between the Spanish and Dutch fleets continued for a span of 31 days as both navies waited for the arrival of San Luis. By July 24, however, there was still no sign of the galleon. Antonio Cam, the commander of the 2nd Dutch Squadron, presumed that it had already made port somewhere in the archipelago. The Dutch decided to lift their siege and finally took the route to Manila. Battle of July 29, 1646, the Second Battle. At dawn of July 25, the Spanish fleet of two left the port of Ticao. When the sun finally rose, they saw the Dutch squadron sailing away, bound to Manila. The Encarnacion and Rosario wasted no time and chased the enemy, knowing that Manila lay defenseless, with no ships to protect itself and all its artillery totally removed for use of the two galleons. The two Spanish galleons caught up the 7 Dutch warships between the islands of Banten and Marinduque on July 28, 1646, although no immediate hostilities ensued. The second battle, which was according to the chronicles was the bloodiest, took place on July 29 at around 7 p.m. The 7 Dutch ships surrounded the Encarnacion. The lone Spanish flagship exchanged fires violently against the Dutch, inflicting greater damage on the part of the corsairs. The Rosario was outside the circle of the Dutch and fired freely from behind, causing greater destruction to the enemy. At one point the Encarnacion got entangled with the Dutch flagship, with the danger that the Dutch would board the flagship and force the outnumbered Spanish troops in hand-to-hand combat. The mariners of the Spanish flagship immediately rushed to cut the tangled ropes, freeing both ships. The Dutch tried to blow up the Encarnacion by sending one of their fireships, but it was repulsed by a continuous volley of artillery from the Spanish flagship. It turned to the Rosario, but it too was met with 10 simultaneous shots which ignited its fireworks. The fireship burst into flames and sank, killing its crew. The battle lasted till daybreak, and the Dutch fled. One man survived the sinking of the Dutch fireship and was taken prisoner by the Spanish Armada. No man was killed in the Encarnacion, but the Rosario lost 5 men. Battle of July 31, 1646, the third battle. The following day, the Spanish fleet pursued the enemy, which now had only 6 vessels including the remaining fireship. The Dutch were cornered by the 2 ships on July 31, 1646 at around 2 p.m., between the islands of Mindoro and Mestre de Campo, an island about 20 kilometers southeast of Mindoro, where the third battle took place. The Spanish fleet took the offensive side as the Dutch were desperately defensive. The Dutch tried to disable the Rosario, but they were met by a heavy volley of cannon shots. The battle continued till 6 p.m. The Dutch once again fled into the night, with its flagship severely damaged. Informed of the third victory, Governor Fajardo ordered the Spanish fleet of 2 to return to the port of Cavite for the much-needed rest and repairs. After a 6-month voyage, the victorious fleet reached Cavite in the latter part of August. General Aureliano retired from service and was awarded by the Governor-General with one of the best encomiendas in the land, while the other officers were promoted in rank. Battle of September 16, 1646, the fourth battle. With their successive victories against the Dutch corsairs, the Spanish authorities in Manila presumed that the enemy had already abandoned their plan of invasion, that they confidently allowed the San Diego, a newly built merchant galleon bound for Mexico, to sail as far as San Bernardino Strait without having any ships to escort it. Unknown to the Spaniards, the first 3 of the 6 warships that consisted the 3rd Dutch Squadron had already entered the Philippine waters by the month of September of the same year, to join the rest of the earlier 2 Dutch squadrons, which, unknown to the commanders of these 3 ships, had already been defeated by the Spanish fleet. General Cristobal Marquez de Valenzuela, commander of the San Diego, was surprised to discover the 3 Dutch ships stationed near Fortune Island in Nasugbu, Batangas. Seeing that the San Diego was not a warship, the Dutch corsairs attacked it furiously. The San Diego barely escaped the Dutch as it retreated towards Mariveles. Upon entering Manila Bay, the galleon proceeded to the port of Cavite to inform the Governor-General regarding the presence of the Dutch. Governor Fajardo immediately ordered his sergeant major and infantry commander Manuel Estacio de Venegas to form a new Spanish armada, now composed of 3 galleons, the Encarnacion, Rosario and San Diego, which was converted to a battleship, a galley, and 4 brigantines. The Encarnacion and Rosario maintained its designations as flagship and admiralship, respectively. At around 9 o'clock, the current caused the Rosario to drift towards the enemy and it found itself surrounded by the 3 Dutch ships. The Encarnacion had difficulty in approaching the Rosario to lend a hand, and for 4 hours, the lone admiralship battled furiously against the 3, forcing the Dutch corsairs to retreat and took shelter among the shoals near Cape Calaviti. Battle of October 4, 1646, the 5th battle. The final battle took place on October 4, 1646. Upon learning that the newly built San Diego had some defects, making it unable to continue its journey to Mexico, General Sebastian Lopez, former admiral and captain of the Rosario, now was promoted as commander-in-chief of the entire armada, and the new captain of the Encarnacion, as Aureliano was already retired, decided to bring the galleon back to Mariveles and await for Governor Fajardo's decision regarding the matter. San Diego was moored at Mariveles, together with the galley and the 4 brigantines, with the Encarnacion guarding it from a distance, anchoring at the entrance of Manila Bay. The Rosario, on the other hand, was carried far away by adverse currents, some 2 or 3 leagues from the 2 ships, and had difficulty in approaching the flagship, for in those places the force of the currents is irresistible. Seeing that the 3 galleons were far from each other, the 3 Dutch ships ventured to attack once more. The Dutch ships, according to the chronicles, were of great size and well armed. The enemy flagship had 40 cannons on its sides, not including those in rear and on the quarter-deck. The admiralship had less. The 3rd vessel seemed to be a fireship due to its swiftness and the fireworks it carried. General Lopez decided not to move from his current position, as the Encarnacion might also be carried away by the current like the Rosario, leaving the San Diego unguarded from the approaching Dutch corsairs. Instead, he waited for the Dutch to come nearer without raising the anchor, but loosened the cable with a buoy. The Dutch came very close to the Encarnacion with the danger that the corsairs would board the lone flagship. Lopez then ordered the anchor to be raised, the ship's sails unfurled, and with the buoyed cables controlling the movement of the flagship, the Encarnacion fired violently against the 3 Dutch ships, as all the 4 grappling vessels were carried by the current away from the San Diego. The furious bombardment lasted for 4 hours. The Encarnacion inflicted grave damages upon the enemy, forcing the Dutch corsairs once again to flee. As the Dutch fled, the wind suddenly stopped, giving chance to the galley under the command of Admiral D. Estevar to attack the Dutch flagship, which was temporarily immobilized with the absence of the wind. Although outgunned, the galera fired upon the Dutch vessel so furiously that the enemy regarded themselves as lost and the men attempted to throw themselves overboard. The Dutch flagship was already in danger of sinking when the wind returned, which helped the enemy in their escape. The Encarnacion and the galera followed in hot pursuit, but the Dutch managed to flee by nightfall. There was no casualty in the Spanish galley, however, 4 were killed in the Encarnacion. The victorious armada returned once again to Manila. The failure of the attempted Dutch conquest, the Philippines remained under Spanish rule up to the end of the 19th century. Conversely, the Dutch did succeed in establishing themselves further south and creating the Dutch East Indies, which would last until the mid-20th century. If you find this video informative and helpful, please give it a like and share with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell so that you will not miss any of our new videos. Thanks for watching.